One of the lessons my dad taught me before he passed away was how important it was to never stop learning. Now, my dad was a heart surgeon, and I write books and make YouTube videos. If I screw up because I didn't learn something, really the worst thing that's going to happen is I might get a 1-star review on my book or an angry comment down in the comment section right down there. If my dad messed up, oh, that's a little bit of a, let's just say there was higher stakes for my dad. But that doesn't mean that as a writer, you could ever really feel like, well, I've learned enough. If you find yourself feeling like you've learned enough, you're probably wrong. It's with that knowledge that I picked up Jenna Moreci's new writing guide, Shut Up and Write the Book. In this review though, I'm not going to break down each portion. If you want that, I suggest buying the book. What I'm going to talk about is whether I think it is worth it for you. If you are a new author who has, not written really anything yet, or is just starting to write your book, or a more established author, kind of like myself, who may have a couple books out already. I'll talk about some of the strengths of the book, the accessibility of the book, and what my suggestion is for you. It makes sense that would be the first writing book review I do on this channel, because I've been a fan of Jenna Moreci's for a while now. Her writing channel was one of the first channels and probably the longest lasting channel that I kept going to for writing tips. I always found her delivery refreshingly blunt without kind of becoming like a cliche or a character. It was one of those things where I would find really helpful information in each of the videos she was doing, and I enjoyed the delivery and thought it was funny. So when I saw that she had distilled all of that knowledge down into a book, I was very interested, and I was interested enough that I went ahead and pre-ordered it. Well, since the pre-orders have now shipped, I went ahead and read it. But first, let's get some general ideas of the book out of the way. It is, of course, well written, and it comes across the same way her channel does. You can definitely tell that it was written by Jenna. It's lacking the frill and self-importance that you often see in some writing guides. It gets straight into it, and it's very easy to read. It's well constructed, and the tips are even summarized at the end of every chapter. It's kind of like what you would have wanted in high school or middle school as you're reading textbooks, or even college, but you never got, because there was always just so much fluff added to it. It's like what you would want then. But before you get too into it, there's a couple things I want to state that actually are stated by Jenna herself in the first couple of pages of the book. This is a guide for fiction. So if you're writing nonfiction, it's probably not going to be as helpful for you. Actually, it won't be as helpful for you because in nonfiction, you're not creating characters, right? If you are, isn't that lying? It also does not cover marketing. So if you're looking for tips on how to market your book, I might suggest someone like David Gaughran instead. I'll link David Gaughran as well down below, because David Gaughran's books, especially on things like BookBub and Amazon advertising, are very, very helpful. But that's an entirely separate thing. And of course, the language is colorful. It is not purple prose like some other writing novels would be. It's colorful in a way that would get this video demonetized if it was monetized, I'm sure. I noticed with every turn of the page, I was seeing myself in the writing, at least seeing myself in the process. There are, of course, some exceptions with Jenna's suggestions and how my actual process goes, but some of those exceptions were either mistakes that I made, things that I did wrong with both my first and my second books, and then things that were just kind of like a difference of opinion on how thorough or not thorough things need to be. But overall, I was seeing myself. It was kind of like having a writing coach as you go through it and saying, look here, this is what you did really well. You did this, and this. And then also having that coach point out these other things and be like, hey, here's where you fucked up. And this is where you should really improve or work on this or do a little bit of extra here. If you are a brand new author, is this book good for you? Yes. If you are writing your first book, your first short story, whatever, this may be the book that I recommend to you first before anything else. Some of the other writing books I have read, for lack of any better phrasing, felt kind of obsessed with themselves. They romanticized the process. They assumed you had knowledge, and at times felt like they were flexing on their readers instead of actually trying to help them. In this book, it feels like an actual person, a person talking to you about writing who knows what they're talking about, but wants to help you become a better writer, not just make you believe that they are a better writer. This book is the kind of straightforward advice that is very important to early authors. It doesn't assume your knowledge, it tells you some things that some established authors maybe like kind of roll their eyes at because they already know, but it's still important. And even people like me who have been writing for about 6 years now, it's important to revisit some of these things. With the way the chapters are structured, they're structured in a way that tells you everything and then summarizes it at the end, which is fantastic for people like me who have a mind that takes so much in, but then dump all that shit on the floor about 5 minutes after. Honestly, for a new author, this damn near may be a must read. It's not a long read. It will be worth your afternoon, evening, or however many couple days you take to finish it. And it can help you in so many ways. It's the kind of book that if I had read this in 2015, I think my entire writing process would have been much easier. It would have been much easier getting Rise out the door, and perhaps even easier getting Stand out the door. Just like how I wish I had read a bunch of marketing books beforehand, it's one of those things that if you are in the early processes, go ahead and this would help you. But what about for an established author? Let's say you have published a book, maybe 2 books, 3 books, 4. If you have published a couple books and you kind of have your process down, is it still worth it to you? Well, I would argue yes, because it was worth it to me. And for me, I have published 2 books. I have over 1,000 sales, which is honestly not that much, but it's still, I have been doing it for a couple years. I've been writing for over 6 years. I've won awards and things like that. And I still found basically every single thing in this book helpful in some way or another. Whether it was seeing a different way to do certain things or refreshing my memory on certain things that I may not have heard of or remembered since, honestly, middle school or before then. It presents it in a way that is so easily digestible. It's so much more fun to read it than going a Google thing like, hey, what was the 3x structure and what was this, and this, and how do I go about setting up plots and characters and things like that. And a lot of the things that you just do intuitively, that or at least you think you do intuitively, it helps sometimes to see them just written out. Like, for example, when talking about characterization, one of the things that Jenna talks about is experience and how that just helps. Well, when I did a video here on this channel over a year ago about characters and developing characters that are real and 3-dimensional, it was talking about that experience and being around people. And it kind of just like brings home like, okay, yeah, that actually is good. That's a good way to go about it. And then you have the step-by-step ways that she indicates on how to do things like that, which really boils down to seeing people and talking to them. I absolutely feel like I learned from this book. I learned how to become a better author from this book, which any writing guide as an author that you read, isn't that what you're going for, to come away from it knowing or feeling like you have learned more on how to hone your craft? Hell, by the 2nd chapter, I was giving myself homework for my current work in progress, which is already 86,000 words in, and how I wanted to take it and go look at how Jenna plotted her structure for her story and kind of slot my book into it and see, am I meeting these things? Am I meeting these parts of the story that make sense? Because the way that she is structuring her story makes a lot of sense. But if you've read world building books, if you've read grammar guide, if you've read any books on writing, are you going to be surprised by the things in this book? No. It doesn't have any earth-shattering secrets for you, and anyone who is promising you earth-shattering secrets on how to write a book is probably lying to you, because writing has been around for so damn long. It's not like we're doing anything crazy new except maybe AI. AI may be changing things, but that's a whole other subject and it's a little scary. But in this book, it's pertinent knowledge. I feel like I polished my skills and I feel like I was inspired to go and write some more after reading it. I wanted to get going on my next novel. So in conclusion, this book in general, I would suggest if you want a no bullshit, no filler writing guide that talks to you like a person and gives you real actionable things. It is information that will be easy to digest, it is helpful, and it's one of those things that I think you will continue to go back to just to kind of refresh your memory every now and then on how to go about the process. Because sometimes, at least for me, I get away from the ideas of things and I just kind of start doing. And having this as kind of a framework for all the doing that I do, which is a weird way to phrase it, but anyway, having that there, it actually makes me feel more grounded in my writing process. It makes me feel more secure. And that's actually really helpful for me in the writing process, feeling like I know what the fuck I'm talking about, because I read this book that tells me that the things that I'm doing actually make sense. And at $5.99 for an ebook, this is really kind of a bargain. You can get this as an ebook, you can get it as a hardback, as a paperback, or as an audiobook. I personally prefer an ebook because I really like, in writing books specifically, being able to highlight things, take notes on things, and using the digital search function. But take it however you want to, however you're going to read it most and have the best access to it. I would personally treat it like a bit of a reference. Now that said, that is just my opinion, and I'm sure there are gonna be plenty of you that have a different opinion on this. However, I am hoping that Jenna Moreci sees this as a successful endeavor and maybe considers writing more guides like this, because I really find the way that she delivers information refreshing, and I would love to see her go deeper into certain topics. I would love to see different kinds of guides come out from her. If you want to pick this book up, I have left links to it down below, as well as links to the aforementioned David Gaughran books, which all talk about marketing, as well as, of course, links to my book if you want to see if I know what the fuck I'm talking about. I don't do writing guides, I do writing tip videos, but I do write books. My name is Mark Moore. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today, and I hope you have a wonderful day.